Do you like a good sneaker? How about a waterproof boot in the fall or winter? Well, Vessy is the best of both worlds, giving your feet unparalleled comfort and dryness, regardless of the conditions outside. Now, here's some of you saying, "Oh, Sir Simon, I've seen water-resistant shoes before, but Vessy are not water-resistant. They are legitimately waterproof tennis shoes. I was in the park the other day. I've actually had this pair. These are the new ones they sent me, but I actually want to talk about the old pair because I was in the park the other day and there's like a fountain and it's got this little thing that goes off and I've had these a good 18 months, and normally you're like, oh, that waterproof thing is just not going to work after that long. I put my feet under the fountain and the water just falls off it, just like before. I'll go back to the park and I'll shoot some B-roll and it'll probably be showing here. Although maybe they closed the fountain for winter. Look, either way, you'll see my old shoes bouncing off water. The same happens for the new shoes and these ones. I haven't even worn these yet. You can see they're fresh. Look, I'll let them touch my face. It's also easy to clean, sustainably made from something called Dymatex, which is a very comfortable knit that helps keeps you warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Again, I'm just going to go off talking points. I got these Vessys last year, and I was never a big sneaker guy. I was kind of more boots and shoes. I just wear Vessys. 100%, not even joking. Wear them out in a downpour, jump through puddles, wear them to run errands in town in the snow. They're just reliable, they look normal, they look cool. It's just a better way to go. Vessys are my go-to shoes. Check them out through the link below, or just go to Vessy.com for your pair of Vessy shoes. Thank you, Vessy, and now today's episode. Ever wonder when a hill becomes a mountain? Well, it turns out that language, like the universe, likes to resist simplicity. So the answer is complicated. But that's not very interesting. So let's dive into it, shall we? To begin with, turning to our trusty friend, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, we have the following definition of a mountain. A landmass that projects conspicuously above its surroundings and is higher than a hill. Helpful. Maybe the Oxford English Dictionary can do better. According to this bastion of English awesomeness, mountains are a natural elevation of the Earth's surface rising more or less abruptly from the surrounding level and attaining an altitude which, relative to the adjacent elevation, is impressive or notable. As you can see, the dictionaries of the world are slightly less than helpful at nailing down precise specifications of what constitutes a mountain versus a hill. And it turns out science in various countries and institutions are equally unhelpful, coming up with a variety of ways to define this in a specific case, though there are some general things to consider when trying to classify a given bump in the ground. Now, as will come as a shock to absolutely no one, in all such cases, one of the main parameters for distinguishing hills and mountains is size. Tall enough, it's a mountain, and falling short, it's a hill. This would make the problem simple enough if that's really the only defining attribute accounted for. Find a threshold above which you are atop a mountain and below which you are on a hill. This is exactly what many countries, including merry old England, used to do until the 1920s. Perhaps the most well-known discourse about the subject is the 1990s movie The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill But Came Down a Mountain, where some Welsh villagers are appalled with Hugh Grant's notion that their village's mountain is, in the eyes of the Central English Bureaucratic Geographic Association, only a hill, but barely. Moving on from size, another common idea is that a hill is a smooth, rounded mound of earth, a bump in the natural landscapes, often remaining unnamed. A mountain, on the other hand, must have a steep inclination. It thus dominates the landscape, messes with the path of clouds, and, of course, has a name. But this description only pertains to the extreme examples of ragged and spiky terrain. These, however, are merely a characteristic of geographically younger mountains, such as the Andes, the Alps, or the Rocky Mountains. Geological granddad mountains can have a more smooth surface, such as the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. Thus, to clarify things a bit, in 1936, Roderick Petty, publisher of Mountain Geography, gave mountains three defining characteristics. They should be impressive, they should enter into the imagination of the people that live in their shadows, and they should have individual character and play a symbolic role in the local area. If that sounds vague to you, well, it is, but surely there must be some harder rules, and the answer to that is, well, no, not exactly. As alluded to, until the 1920s, the British Ordnance Survey defined a mountain as a geographic feature rising higher than 1,000 feet, that's 304 meters, from surrounding ground level. This arbitrary line is behind the plot of the Hugh Grant movie, as the villagers had to build up the additional distance needed to reach the threshold. America followed the same trend until the 1970s. Nowadays, however, Mr. Petty suggested local tradition plays a major role. Generally, a mountain should have a minimum height of 610 meters, that's 2,000 feet, but if the locals have always considered their hill a mountain, well, let's not anger them just for the sake of size. It is, after all, not always about size, but presence and reputation. This is particularly the case if the subject observed is a single elevation in otherwise flat areas, so relativity should also be considered. Today, the leaders in geography, like the United States Geological Survey, USGS, also do not have an exact definition of mountain and hill. Instead, the organization's Geographic Names Information System, GNIS, tries to follow some of the aforementioned few generally accepted characteristics. Again, things like climbability, it is a characteristic in the landscape, what do the locals consider it, and so on and so forth. Moving on from hills and mountains, perhaps we can better have clarity with regards to seas and lakes. To begin with, simply put, if it has a significant amount of salt, it is a sea, and if it is surrounded by land, then it is a lake. Of course, sometimes bodies of water fit both bills, such as the Dead Sea and the Caspian Sea, in which case people just call it as they see it, although sometimes this can have major political ramifications. For example, with the Caspian Sea, its classification is in fact a very political issue, as international waters have different legislative statuses depending if it's a sea or a lake. Adding pressure to the situation is the fact that the Caspian Sea is an area rich in oil, and the countries sharing the borders, among others Russia and Iran, are not exactly known as meek in their political stances, so the status of the Caspian waters has been an ongoing issue for decades. Before the fall of the Soviet Union, the problems were solved with bilateral treaties, as it bordered only the USSR and Iran. But after 1990, the Caspian liquid mass was surrounded by 5 countries: Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Russia, and Iran. So the definition of a lake or sea made a big difference. A lake would be divided equally among the bordering countries. Therefore, Azerbaijan, which does not have a very long coastline, would prefer this solution. For seas, on the other hand, according to the UN's Law of the Sea, the surface and bed are allotted nearer to shore according to the length of the relevant coastline. So Kazakhstan, which has a long front of the Caspian waters, preferred the solution of calling it a sea. In 2018, a convention on the legal status of the Caspian Sea was held. Each neighboring country was granted jurisdiction over 24 kilometers, that's 15 miles of territorial waters, plus an additional 16 kilometers, 10 miles of exclusive fishing rights on the surface. This doesn't necessarily add up to the full extent of the Caspian Sea, so the rest is considered international waters. The seabed, however, was not defined within the convention and remained subject to bilateral agreements between countries. Ultimately, the Caspian Sea, therefore, still isn't a sea or a lake completely, but something in between. And that's still not where the controversy ends. When does meandering water become a river versus a stream? Continents, what's up with those guys? Are there 5? Are there 7? Once more, it depends on the definition, and it isn't unilateral at all. And when do landmasses stop being islands? Is Australia an island? One definition is that an island is a landmass surrounded by water and smaller than a continent. But for this, we go back to the disputed definition of a continent. Oceania, for example, is defined either by its tectonic plate or by the landmasses that reach out of the water. And so it is that in our description of the environment, many of the words we use contain all these vague language notions that fail under the scrutiny of precise definition. Feel free to use this information to spark up a heated debate over whether the land mass you're currently gazing upon constitutes a humble hill or a mighty mountain. Bonus fact: the highest mountain of the Dutch nation is a mere 322 meters, and it's located at their southern border down at the Ardennes. There is a reason that we call them the Netherlands. But never you fear, there is a proposal for a change. A plan is in the works that might elevate the Netherlands. In 2011, Thea Zonneveld proposed the idea for a mountain because, well, I guess, why not? To clarify, this would not be like the Dubai buildings, which are considered, in essence, tall sticks held up by clever static engineering. The plan was to build an actual mountain, 2 kilometers tall and 5 kilometers wide, to dominate the Netherlands. Why? Well, for tourism. Unfortunately, with an estimated cost of more than $5 trillion, it would probably literally be cheaper to build moon colonies than this training facility for Dutch athletes. But you know what they say, national pride is beyond cost. A counter-proposal for the cost is to fill the side of the mountains not needed for ski pistes with solar panels and wind turbines, etc., so that you have a green mountain that also generates income, or at least saves money through generating electricity. Of course, given the sky-high costs, let's just say that this probably isn't going to happen at all. So I really hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching.